Support WrestleTalk.
Be kind to each other in the comments. Gangs of New Sheamus has turned heel on Drew McIntyre. You know, that storyline, that bubbling frustration in a friendship that's been going since about October. Yeah, it was just sort of is over now in the space of one opening segment on Raw. I'm Mr. Davis. I'm joined by Lukewarm Luke Owen. This podcast is sponsored by beer. What other wrestling podcasts are sponsored by beer? That's amazing. And you can get free beer. We're giving you free beer. If you go to the link in the video description below, beer52.com/WrestleTalk, and UK viewers only get a free case of 8 craft beers. Om nom 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 nom. I will be tucking into this oatmeal stout in about 15 minutes.
Oh, it is good. It is good, mate.
But first off, let's talk about the main topic. One of quite a few main topics, actually. It was a very newsworthy episode. This kind of is unofficially the kickoff to the road to WrestleMania. Royal Rumble embarks us on this journey. It's the post-Royal Rumble episode. And as Wrestling Observer Radio pointed out, the first segment, the opening segment, is going to be one of the most watched parts of the entire year on WWE programming, because you've got that Rumble bump, and most people tune in for the first hour, then they steadily drop off because Raw's too goddamn long.
Oh, yeah.
So WWE front-loaded that with Drew McIntyre coming out for a promo. He was interrupted by Edge. Edge cut a promo about how he might choose Drew McIntyre to face at WrestleMania, but looks like, reportedly, he's going to go the other way, have a battle of the spears with Roman Reigns. He left being like, well, I'll let you know. You'll know when I know. I'm the ultimate opportunist, as if he won the Money in the Bank briefcase. I don't think he knows how the Rumble shot works. And then Sheamus comes in and is kind of there to defend Drew, but just bro kicks him. And there you go.
Yeah, like, I mean, I wrote in my notes when this happened, Sheamus turns heel on Drew. Oh, that's a shame. Because, like, we're all expecting. It's a shameful thing. I mean, we were all expecting this to happen. Like, this was bound to happen. This, as soon as they were playing up like the I'm his best friend and I've been his best friend for 20 plus. That was a perfect Sheamus impersonation. He hasn't just joined the show. It's just me doing the voice. He's like, we've been like, cool. And then he'll turn heel, and that will be a WWE Championship program. And it will probably be great because he's doing some great work at the moment. But when Sheamus came down to defend Drew McIntyre, and he's looking at Edge and be like, how dare you? That man is the WWE champion. That man is my best friend. How dare you speak to him that way? I was like, I love this partnership. And I cannot wait to just like build on this friendship even more until we build to the Sheamus turn. And then, nope, he just turned heel. And I was like, like this to me feels like, especially if they're doing Edge Roman, which certainly feels like it's the direction, because this felt like Edge's swan song to Raw, like putting Randy Orton behind him. Then I would have almost savored the Drew Sheamus thing and done that as your Mania program as opposed to your Fastlane program. With that said, going by WWE's booking standards, it probably can be the WrestleMania program. It'll just be the 5th match they have rather than the first one.
Yeah, in terms of whether this feud that's now started will last multiple pay-per-views, I don't know. I certainly... It's difficult because Sheamus and Drew has been one of my favorite bubbling away sub-narratives on Raw. They've been friends, they've fought, they've been friends, but they've always had this respect between them. And we had a super chat in yesterday, a hyper chat in yesterday on the Rumble one, being like, I want to see Sheamus versus Drew at Mania. And I was like, yeah, I want to see that match. But, you know, when you look at the WrestleMania main event traditions for the WWE Championship, Drew versus Sheamus, unfortunately, just doesn't have that main event ring to it. So this, to me, feels like, I don't know, maybe even a Fastlane match. You know, you have Sheamus as one of many in an Elimination Chamber bout, potentially. Or maybe it's just Drew and Sheamus on the Chamber pay-per-view, which is only 2 episodes of Raw away, folks. The pay-per-views come thick and fast this time of the year. So, yeah.
But you could, I would argue, because I agree with you. I do completely agree with you. Like, he doesn't feel like a main eventer now, but you could have spent the next few months building that, because he hasn't had like a lot of singles wins under his belt. Like, he beat Morrison, but then lost to Miz and Morrison in a handicap tag match. Don't do that sort of thing. Spend these next 3 months building him and building him and building him. So he as a character is just like, I'm earning my WWE Championship shot, but it's not coming to me, and I still haven't had one. And that's what triggers the heel turn to in the month before WrestleMania, right? So then it does sort of feel like it is a guy who's on this hot winning streak, now going up against this champion who cannot be beaten, and basically outside of 1 or 2 matches hasn't been beaten since WrestleMania. And that, for me, probably would have felt like a big time WrestleMania match.
Yeah, and you can. It's a 2-night WrestleMania. You can have other big ones. When I say big, I mean big in Vince McMahon's mind. So usually someone who is about 50 years old or above comes back for a match. But yeah, maybe you could have stretched out Drew and Sheamus and had it as one of those kinds of programs. But I guess what we're all disappointed with, this is quite universal from what me and you think and the reaction I've seen online, is this is just such a limp way of doing it. It's the opening segment, which granted is the most watched segment, but it always gets lost in the shuffle if it doesn't come at the end of the show. That sort of 3rd hour cliffhanger ending. It just feels a lot more impactful because of the weight of where it's been positioned. But it wasn't that. It was the end of the opening, and it was just Sheamus just decided to kick Drew in the head. He didn't cost him anything. There's not much to separate Sheamus's actions here from previous friendly brawls Drew and him have had in the past. So I'm just struggling to get on board with the level of emotion that McIntyre suddenly used later on in a promo to Caruso alert backstage, where he's borderline crying. And bless the guy, he's trying to do the best with what he's been given, which is get over an emotional angle to this feud. But he's swimming uphill.
Yeah, I know. And I think this needed more time behind it to make the heel turn mean something.
I disagree. I think they've had 4 or 5 months behind it. I think what you need is a better angle. Well, if this was a good angle.
Yeah, maybe there's that as well, because it was just, one bro kick and that was it. It wasn't like a vicious beatdown, just hit his move. And as you say, they've had backstage scuffles. We thought that there was one point where Sheamus had turned heel because they were just beating 10 bells out of each other backstage and had to be pulled apart by, I think it was Adam Pearce, and they put Adam Pearce through the table and all that sort of stuff, drinking kegs and whatnot. So yeah, I think you're right. I would agree with you on that as well, that maybe this just needed a big hot angle to kind of cement this heel turn, as opposed to just one move that was at the end of an Edge segment to capitalize and to make this feel like a big time turn.
Yeah, I was trying to think of ways to do it in my head. Maybe have Drew out on commentary for the main event. I think that works because of his history with Orton and the possibility that Edge might fight him for the title at Mania. And then, Sheamus can somehow get involved in that, be like, why are these guys getting opportunities ahead of me? I'm meant to be your mate.
Problem there, Davis, is that main event was all about Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton. Where were you at? Edge wasn't supposed to be there. This was all about Randy Orton and Bliss.
Well, shall we see what you guys think on the Ultra Chats?
Indeed.
Get all of your Ultra Chats into WrestleTalk.com/support. We will answer every single one of them before the end of the show. Reese Johnson says, "Afternoon, lads. Hope you both well. Raw was another bore for me. Nothing seems to progress. Just the same show each week. Think they've dropped the ball on the Sheamus turn. They could have had a better build up to it than that."
I'm going to disagree. I actually felt that this felt like some stuff was actually progressing on this show. Not all of it, because some stuff is just wheels spinning, bloody Jeff Hardy and Elias. But there were some bits on here that I thought, okay, it feels like we're actually moving ahead now. Certainly not towards Elimination Chamber, but, to WrestleMania at the very least.
Felt like a soft restart, like a new mid-season.
Monochromatic Jeff Hardy and Elias.
Monochromatic Vice, do you think Sheamus turned on Drew so he can remind Drew how he used to be ruthless because he's become too respectful and has lost that edge? No pun intended.
I mean, you certainly could do that, but you could have built that up through Sheamus promos, in the sort of the weeks building up to this turn, or just been you can't be you should be taking Edge out, as opposed to Sheamus coming down and be like, don't you talk to Drew that way. So you could probably rewrite it to be that. But I think if that's the story you're going to tell, you probably could have done a bit of a better job of telling that story.
Sorry, are you getting text messages or anything?
I am. Yeah, can you hear them?
I can hear quite a lot of beep, 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 beep.
I mean, I'm getting like WhatsApp notifications on my desktop, but that should be just coming through my headphones.
I'm getting a lot of. Let me throw. There's nothing on my phone. Let me throw it away though.
Yeah. Put my
Gone
phone.
with it.
I mean, I should have my phone on airplane mode anyway because it's incredibly, unprofessional.
Bacon Rasher. Hi lads. It's a shame Moose. It's a shame Moose. Oh, is that Sheamus? It's a shame Moose that he turned on Drew, and typical WWE, it was done badly after great setting up. Overall, though, it was an okay Raw and best of the year so far. I actually watched it this morning. Jam that jam. I enjoyed Legends Night more, but definitely the best in a while. Best of the month, I'd say.
I'd say it's been the best. Because I didn't watch the Legends Night episode, so this has been the most enjoyable episode of Raw in forever for me.
And Marcel Arts, cheerio, Waldmeister Marcel here. He loves apples. Just wanted to stop by and correct your title. Sheamus turned face on pet murderer Drew. Hashtag never forget the spider.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone by now has forgotten that spider.
Poor Eric Rowan. Just before we move on to Beer 52 and whatnot, Keith Lee in all of this. He's been telling Drew and Sheamus forever. Sheamus is going to turn on you, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps this is a pessimistic view, but I don't think he's going to be involved in this storyline whatsoever. But like at the same time, but you're right, he should. Like, and actually, as a triple threat for WrestleMania, that's pretty great.
Actually, I would love that for WrestleMania.
Yeah, I'd love that for Mania. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's just about how you get Sheamus, because I think you've got to do a singles match between Sheamus and Drew before then. How do you get there without weakening anyone? Like if you put loads of people like that in the chamber, you've got to eliminate them.
Yeah, Ollie, I'm again, like, it doesn't matter if that, like, Matt Riddle's been beaten from pillar to post by the Hurt Business, but he's still getting US title matches against Bobby Lashley. It doesn't matter if they beat Sheamus like a drum. You can just still put him in a title match.
Yeah, we'll talk about Riddle. We are sponsored by Beer 52. Go to beer52.com/WrestleTalk and you'll get a free case of 8 craft beers, UK viewers only. I said I wouldn't do this today, but it is our last current Beer 52 sponsorship episode. So I'm going to enjoy a can of Karma oatmeal stout.
So good. I'm actually kind of gutted. I drank all of my Beer 52s in the lead up to the Rumble and then during the Rumble stream. It's good, right? Look at that as a face. It's a good beer, right?
That is delicious. It's soft.
Tell me more.
It's malty.
Tell me more.
It's got a little bit of dark chocolate hanging right at the end of it. And you know what? I'm going to say it. A little bit of raspberry.
Oh, you love to hear it.
Genuinely, Beer 52. Not only do you get beers, but I do feel like it's given me a better appreciation of beer. Like the sort of taste. I used beer before. I used to just be like, it's just this thing I have to do to get through the day, right? But now it's actually a nice. It can be like, oh, this is a light hoppy one, and this is like this has notes of pear or sherbet. I don't know, and their magazines really help you with that.
Did you have the milkshake IPA one?
I had that on the Rumble stream.
Dude, it's so, oh man, I haven't stopped thinking about it. It was such a nice beer.
It was a bit much for me. Like I'd love a third pint of that. But it was, it's amazing. It actually tasted like a milkshake.
Yeah, I was gonna say you couldn't have more than 2 pints of it. Like your stomach will curdle. But it was delightful.
Just a little bit more housekeeping before we move on with the rest of the review. We are dual streaming in 2 places right now because in 3 weeks' time, we are moving the WrestleTalk podcast from WrestleTalk over to its new home exclusively, the WrestleTalk podcast channel. WrestleTalk podcast channel used to be Wrestle2, but from now on, from right now, it is only the WrestleTalk podcast that will be on there. And then post-Elimination Chamber, it'll move away entirely over there. So WrestleTalk will just be the WrestleTalk news. It's going to make it a lot easier for you guys to find us in the YouTube algorithm and blah, blah, blah. And it will just make it neater. Be nice.
Exactly, yeah. So currently there are 1,400 people who are watching this, and 1,000 of you are watching this on the WrestleTalk main channel. So if all 1,000 of you just go over, it's the exact same stream. You're not missing out on anything. Just jump on over. There's a link to it. The mods will be posting a link to it. That is going to be the new home. It's time to, you need to get, we're giving you the opportunity to get used to this, used to the switch over, because in 3 weeks' time, if you're going to the main WrestleTalk channel, wondering where the Raw review is, you're not going to find it.
We've, well, we can see all the chats. We've got one feed of them, so don't worry, you won't get missed. The Hyperchats, they'll get picked up too. So thank you. Jordan Curley, he's on that channel right now.
He's on the channel.
Yeah, be like Jordan Curley. And Mike Montiel, I'll go move for you, lukewarm Luke Owen.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes,
you're great.
Don't enter this channel. I just switched over.
Everyone can make the switch. You switch. We all switch.
Marshall Mouse, I have both open now. LOL Echo.
Oh, I can't even imagine what that's like.
No, everyone is trying to get in on this. I'm here. Thank you, John Cena Gamer. Thank you, Tyler Woodward. Thank you, Carol Wands, of course. CM just moved. Brian Denny. I am now on the new channel. Look at all these lovely faces. How's it doing for us?
It is 100 odd people have moved over, and it's climbing. It's still climbing. You love to see it.
Andy Moore, Wrestle Switch.
Oh, I love it. Love the branding.
You know, a Switch is also a name for a sort of kinky spanking device.
Is it really?
Yeah. Let's move on. So the Raw review. Let's do the play-by-play of that. Just let me take another sipple of this. It's 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday.
I'm drinking tea because that's the time of day that it is. Oh, it's a good tea.
I'm going to be obnoxiously loud later at this rate. Right, so
in the face.
We got the opening segment of McIntyre coming out, an Edge and the Sheamus heel turn, and then we got Matt Riddle versus Bobby Lashley. And despite myself, I was excited because Riddle looked great in the Rumble and Lashley looked freaking incredible in the Rumble. He displayed like such a ferocious, more violent side to him. And he was already pretty violent, I'd argue. So very excited about this. I thought, okay, new season, let's give Riddle something. He tapped out in 2 minutes. It spilled outside as Riddle's getting back in the ring. Lashley locks in the full Nelson. And the referee calls it off because he wouldn't break the hold. He was in the ropes. Title doesn't switch hands, of course, the United States Championship. But even so, Riddle still tapped. So you still saw him tap out. So in all of his contests against Lashley so far, he's tapped in the non-title match behind the referee's back. He's been pinned, and now he's tapped again, even though he technically won this match via DQ. And then Lashley just beat him up afterwards. And that was it.
And all Matt Riddle has done for the last few months is have matches with the Hurt Business. Whether it's matches against Bobby Lashley where he keeps losing, or it's matches where he's teaming with people to take on the Hurt Business. I am sick of seeing Matt Riddle face off against the Hurt Business. They've taken a feud that I was actually genuinely really excited about and made me not want to see it. And what's worse is this feud must continue because we didn't get a decisive finish in this match because Bobby Lashley got himself DQ'd. And even though Matt Riddle also tapped out. So this feud must continue. So we're just dragging this thing out. And I said this on last week's show, but this appears to be the Hurt Business, the Curse Business, because this is exactly what happened. This is exactly what happened with Apollo Crews. This is exactly what happened with Ricochet. They just keep getting in never-ending feuds. And by the end of it, I never want to see the feuds ever again.
And it's such a shame because the Hurt Business is fantastic. Like as an act MVP doing the best stuff of his career. Everyone's draped in gold right now. But yeah, this is... Look, the positive of this is Lashley looked incredible. Lashley looked even better than he has done before, and he already looked really good. And what I loved about this, I don't know if you heard it, as he was beating up Riddle on the outside, MVP is shouting at him like, don't, man, like, you don't want to go to jail. You might win them. He had this line, you might win the match, but you won't win the court. And of course, MVP's history, he was legit in jail for a while before becoming a professional wrestler. It just put over, that way where Paul Heyman's like, no, Brock, don't stop beating him up. Like the manager's scared as well. It was a great packaging of Lashley.
And they had like Matt Riddle, like, after the break-in, they sort of cut backstage and instead they go back to Riddle being looked at by doctors. He doesn't even remember the match, like, because Lashley, like, absolutely dominated him and threw him at ringside. So like Riddle can't even remember who he was facing in a match. That's how dangerous Bobby Lashley is. And I think that's really interesting. My worry is that it's even more dissension within the Hurt Business, which is a group that's already got signs of dissension in there, which I don't need.
I didn't take it as that. I just think it was more MVP being a smart manager.
I hope you're right.
But yeah, unfortunately, it comes at the expense of Riddle. I think this would be a great build to an eventual Lashley versus Riddle match, like if they were to have a big MMA thing for the first time. Don't think that's happening. So just very briefly, who do you think Lashley is being positioned? Like, they don't just build people up. You build someone up so someone can then beat them. That's wrestling booking, not just WWE booking.
Building him for Matt Riddle. Like that's what the eventual game is here. Is then Matt Riddle wins and he wins the US title. Maybe you do Bobby Drew again. I don't know.
Brock Lesnar.
You reckon Brock? You think Brock's coming back for a match at Mania and it's going to be against Lashley? I mean, like, I'd be in for it. And like that, he feels like the only guy that's bigger than Drew that the match makes sense for.
If Edge is going against Roman, and I thought if Brock came back, there's the Paul Heyman capacity to it. I think, get Heyman on Raw, managing Lesnar, going up against Lashley. Oh, can you imagine those segments? MVP and Lashley on one side, freaking Lesnar and Heyman on the other.
Yeah, that I'm well into. That I'm very much into.
But yeah, just speculation. We'll be disappointed if we think that's going to happen. Bad Bunny.
Just one other thing before we move on onto Mr. Bunny. Something that I actually didn't pick up on. I only got this from the Fightful review of this show. But when Sheamus was leaving and he gets like Charlie tries to interview him and he talks about like everyone just knows me as Drew friends, but like I'm no one's friend. I'm coming after the title. And he gets his bags from someone. He gets his bags from Drew Gulak.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that means something, or is it just that Drew is that unimportant that he's now handing bags to people?
I'm scared it's the latter.
That's what I thought as well. I was like, we need an extra to hand the bags to it. You there, production staff member, can you hand these bags to? I was like, no, I'm Drew Gulak. I was literally wrestling on the show just 2 weeks ago.
Freaking re-signed. He re-signed last year.
Yeah, man.
It's on him. Like anyone who re-signs with WWE and doesn't get used well in this current climate, it's on you.
I think this is people wonder, wow, why is Cesaro getting such a push at the moment? Well, we've got our answer now. It's because his contract's expiring after WrestleMania by all reports. So that's why he's now getting a bit of a push to try and get him to re-sign.
So Bad Bunny turns up backstage. You might not like him, but boy, does he pull in the YouTube numbers for the WWE clips.
Yeah, and it totally makes sense. He was. I found this out today. He had more plays on Spotify last year than GTS. Like he is a superstar of like. I mean, I don't know his music. It's not really my cup of tea, but I get it. Like I totally get like why he is a huge get for WWE, and he's a massive wrestling fan as well. So this is the biggest win possible for WWE right now.
Did you say GTS?
That's what they call, right? The K-pop bands?
BTS.
Oh, was it BTS? Sorry.
Sorry. You're not cool. You're not cool like me.
I just know they're popular.
With my WAPs and my Billie Eilish. Look at all my WAPs.
I did a quiz at the end of the year, because of course you do a quiz at the end of the year. And it was like, the top 10 played songs of the year. And I didn't know any of them. And I was like, if WAP's not one of these songs, I don't know it. And as it turned out, didn't get any of them.
No WAPs for you.
WAP was not in there, which I would have got because that's a banging tune.
Randy, it's not. It's crude. Randy Orton cut a promo about how he sort of kicked Edge in the head and, rode him out. And he went back to the old character. That was amazing. I forgot how amazing this character was, where he's like, look, I had to do that to you, Edge, because I love you and I'm trying to protect you and your family from getting injured again. Oh my God. Yeah, and that was sort of the first time I'd heard that we were getting Edge versus Orton on this episode in the main event. So I was like,
know, right?
Okay, right, on free TV, that's ending in 2 minutes.
Yeah, no, it was like super duper impressive, right? Like it was, I didn't know it was like it was coming that way. I didn't know it was until they announced it. I was like, holy hell, that's quite a main event for this show. And it is like it was a great reminder of how awesome that Randy Orton character was. Sort of weird because it's very different to the Randy Orton character he's currently playing, but it was just sort of a nice being like, I'm just going to stop being. It's because WWE can't do concurrent storylines. I'm just going to stop being this character for now, and I'm going to go back to being this character for a bit. Then next week I'm going to go back to being the character I currently am.
After that, we got Xavier Woods taking on Mustafa Ali after he sort of worked his way through other members of Retribution. It went a couple of minutes. Kofi Kingston, who's not medically cleared, took out Slapjack. That was enough to distract Ali for Woods to get a sort of crucifix-style pin.
And that's what I said last week. This feud is done now, right? Mm-hmm. Like they've beaten the baddies. So the feud is done. We've seen them, but the baddies have got their comeuppance and they've now lost. So where do you go from here? A tag match? Like I've seen you beat them.
It's crazy. It's like the money here is in Ali versus Kingston. That's the story. Ali's been calling out Kingston for how Kingston took his place for Kofi Mania 2 years ago. But now Ali's been beaten in 2 minutes by Woods, who's kind of Kofi's second. I have zero interest in seeing that match happen.
Mm-hmm. Not into it.
And Retribution has a 3-man advantage.
And it sucks because it's the first good Retribution storyline.
Bad Bunny was then shown backstage with Damien Priest, which went right into a Miz TV segment with Miz and John Morrison. They got Bad Bunny to come out as their guest. They pitched doing a rap album with him. He could produce that for him, but Damien Priest came out to interrupt. It was all a ruse. It was Priest's debut match on the main roster for full Raw call-up here, where he took on Miz and beat Miz, looking very impressive, thanks to Bad Bunny taking out Morrison on the outside.
Bad Bunny, who is bigger than DTS. I believe he got more plays than them on Spotify.
That sounds like when The Rock did the promo on Booker T. I don't care if you Booker A, Booker B, Booker C.
So he's bigger than MTS and bigger than all of them. And this made Priest look awesome. Mm-hmm. I kind of wish that they hadn't have done the backstage segment with Bad Bunny hanging out with Damien Priest. Like I wish they just sort of done the car thing arrive, because it would have been a really cool, because because Bad Bunny's just like, I've got a friend. And they're like, oh my God, who's the friend? I'm like, well, it's Damien Priest, because we literally just saw them backstage together. Like we know who it is. So it kind of makes the commentary look stupid. It makes Miz and Morrison look stupid. So it could have been done more effectively. However, I'm pushing all of that to one side, because this segment made Damien Priest look awesome. Damien Priest being aligned with Bad Bunny, beating Miz and Morrison, who don't matter a jot. Like it totally makes sense to beat them up. Also, you can set up a tag match. We talked about doing a tag match, but we kind of thought it'd be Booker T. Idiot us. Of course it's Priest. It makes way more sense for it to be Priest. Priest and Bad Bunny versus Miz and Morrison is like a really, really good, like that elevates Priest so much in like end stock. And I thought this was an absolute win of a segment for pretty much everyone involved.
Yeah, great debut for Priest. I get if some people are like, oh, but he's a NXT boy, and now he's doing celebrity stuff with Bad Bunny and the Miz on the main roster. Like if I read that on paper, I would be totally with you. But I think sometimes you've got to zoom out and look at the bigger picture here. This is a huge vote of confidence in Priest by the company, giving him a lot of mainstream attention on his debut, and bigger than anything, they let a big guy do an impressive athletic spot as the first move of the match. You didn't get Keith Lee doing leapfrogs right to begin with. Priest does a flip dive outside on Miz and Morrison to kick things off here. So yeah, I think this is only good for Priest. Please, 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 God, may it last longer than 3 weeks.
I was going to say, I give it 3 weeks and he sent back to NXT to learn how to work like a big guy.
We then got a recap of Alexa Bliss's segment from last week.
It's a recap. It's a recap of Bliss watching recaps.
So technically, it was a recap within a recap within a recap at one point.
Yeah, it's actually quite impressive.
After that, we got the Hurt Business of Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander defending their Raw Tag Team titles against the Lucha House Party after the House Party beat them in a non-title match, I think, the previous week. And Alexander and Benjamin work together a lot better here. It seems they're putting the infighting behind them for now, and that helped them retain.
Yeah, this is a much better way to tell this story, which is at the match, like Cedric had the match lined up to be won, and he's in the corner celebrating with Shelton because they're like, hey, look at us, we're on top, we're going to win this match. Shelton tags himself in, hits the pay dirt, and gets the win. And Cedric's reaction to this was not, oh, I can't believe you stole your spot from me. His reaction was, I wanted to get the win, but it doesn't matter because we won. It's not about me. It's about the team. It's about the Hurt Business. It's about having the titles. So yes, his pride was hurt a little bit, but it didn't matter because the team has still got the gold, and that's what's important. And I thought that Cedric sold that really, really well. You got so much from the way that he was portraying this. This is so much better than Cedric and Shelton just arguing the second they won the belts.
Yeah, so much better than previous installments. After that, we got Asuka and Charlotte in a match against Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke and the new tag team of Lana and Naomi, who are now best friends too.
Of course they are. Of course they're best friends. You got commentary being like they've been best friends for years. Like they've been so close ever since Lana challenged Naomi for her SmackDown Women's Championship. Absolute nonsense. You brought back Naomi. Like after all this months of her being out, finally Naomi's back on the main roster. What have we got? She's in a tag team with Lana. Come on. Is this the big plan? Is this the big plan? And then they friggin' pinned Asuka. Stop pinning Asuka. There was Mandy Rose was in the match. Dana Brooke, pin either of them. Why are you pinning Asuka all the time?
Because you got to tell the story that Asuka's annoyed at Charlotte. Because Charlotte left after. Charlotte got distracted by Lacey Evans and Ric Flair on the entrance ramp, and that was distracting. It's not like they've done that in every Charlotte segment for the last 3 weeks.
And Charlotte keeps winning whenever they do it, with the exception, and she would have won had they not kept doing it at the pay-per-view.
So the way Charlotte walked off here as well, it was actually a pretty decent match for the 5-10 minutes it was given, but the finish was Charlotte. Just Flair, Rick and Lacey enter. Lacey's wearing the robe again. And Charlotte just like transfixed. Like they've got a spell on her. Walks out the ring and just walks up the ramp. Like she was either bored or hypnotized.
I think it was the former. She was like, I can't believe I'm still in this storyline. I'm out of here. I'm leaving right now. And and then Asuka just loses because she got an arse in her face.
Yeah, Naomi hit the rear view.
But just in case anyone wasn't clear, I hated this. So much. Surely the point of putting Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke in the match was to have them pinned, so you didn't have to pin the champion.
Very nice to see Naomi back. That's a positive.
Lovely. Great to see her back. Don't like her being in a tag team. Also, you've been telling the story of Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke going after the belts, going after Jaxson Baszler. So why is Naomi winning then?
Because she's new and shiny, and she just came back. I don't get why we can't have actual Raw women's singles feuds. I guess because you've got Bliss.
Well, yeah, because Bliss and Charlotte are essentially the top single stars. Charlotte's just unfortunately stuck in a tag feud that she doesn't want to be part of.
Baszler and Jax watched on backstage through all of that. So yeah, Naomi and Lana versus Baszler and Jax. I guess that kind of makes sense because Lana was in that tables feud.
Don't do it with Naomi, though. Why do you need Naomi there? Naomi needs bigger and better things than this.
Hey, I've got another one for you. Don't do it with Lana either.
Yeah, true.
We got the Drew promo where he was very upset about Sheamus turning on him. Then we got another favorite of Luke's, Elias and Jaxson Ryker taking on Jeff Hardy, but it's different because there's now a Carlito.
Yep, Team 2005 got a good win here over Elias and Jaxson Ryker. Match was okay. It was pretty good. Carlito looks awesome, like he did, and it was really they had a cool video package for him as well, for in case anyone who wasn't watching 16 years ago to be like, this is who this guy is. So I think that was quite nice. And Carlito hit the backstabber. Jeff hit the swanton. This screamed feud must continue, and I just think we're going to get more Jeff Hardy Elias matches off the back of it.
I was surprised by how minimal Carlito's involvement was. Usually when you bring back a guy like this, MVP, for instance, last year, he was having singles matches with Rey Mysterio. And it was like, wait, look, MVP's back. Carlito was in a tag match as a throwaway partner in someone else's feud, where he got a hot tag of 1 minute, hit about 4 moves, and then tagged back in Jeff Hardy, who hit the swanton to win. This didn't remind me of MVP. This reminded me of Matt Cardona in AEW.
Oh, do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Carlito in 2007 when he didn't care. And like he just went in there and just half-assed everything.
But that was the position he was booked in.
Yeah, but then maybe he didn't have a great time at the Rumble. Maybe the whole point they were trying to ease, PW Insider's report, was it? They said they were trying to lure him into being a backstage producer. Maybe he didn't have a good time.
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't. Also, even if you've done stuff outside the company, as soon as you come back through WWE, they're going to treat you exactly how you left, which is, Carlito's the lazy guy, right? Let's not book him in much. So I don't know. It didn't seem like a vote of confidence for me. So, and a lot of people like Carlito. I like Carlito, but not to a crazy extent. He's just a sort of lower mid-carder for a couple of years, 10 years ago. But good for you if you enjoyed his comeback. Tempest sure did.
Pause the stream, Tempest.
Also, he didn't have an apple.
Well, of course you can't have the apple because you can't spit in people's faces. It'd be
you can wrestle
dangerous.
them.
What, wrestle the apples?
No, look, you can spit in people's faces right now. You're wrestling with them. I think that ship's already sailed.
I think it sends a bit of a bad message if Carlito is literally spitting in people's faces.
I guess so. Could be some good heel heat. I wouldn't put it past him.
I mean, he's definitely the babyface at the moment. I think it would be fully misguided.
Vince pitched this idea. He's like, hey guys, look, we're not allowed to spit on each other's faces right now. We've got to wear masks. Let's have a guy who spits in people's faces.
I mean, do you know there was that report? I think it was a Fight for Slate report that said there are some people within the higher ups that still don't believe that the coronavirus pandemic is real. I would wager that Vince is one of those people.
We can only assume. Edge got a great promo. I really like the story he's telling, that he's trying to win back that title that he never lost. Then Edge walked backstage and gave Damien Priest a handshake. It's a lot of confidence.
They are high on Damien Priest, man. It's exactly as Sean has said this for ages. As soon as Vince gets one look at Damien Priest, he's going to be like, look at the size of this dude. This dude is a legit main eventer. I cannot wait to have him on the main roster.
Sean said on our Rumble stream, he was like, Vince is going to see him. He's like, you're as tall as Baron Corbin, and you can work.
Yeah. You've actually got hair as well. It wasn't just falling out of your head. You could definitely be a main eventer. After
this, we got Bliss versus Nikki Cross, which I actually really enjoyed. Apart from the standard, Bliss is there one moment, then it cuts, and then it cuts back, and she's there in a completely different outfit. The other stuff, where she was just doing the act that she was doing a couple of months ago, versus Nikki Cross, which has loads of context and history and character relationships to dive into, I really liked it. I really liked how Bliss moved. I liked how she'd pin Nikki and then go, oh, when Nikki kicked out, like she was a children's TV presenter trying to figure out a not that very hard maths problem. And then she did a hopscotch before kicking Nikki in the gut. And at the end, she debuted this new finisher, which is the Sister Abigail, but she hooks over the top of the neck and then hits it, which I thought looked great.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that bit looked great as well. I think my issue is that I preferred this match when I saw it 3 months ago, and Bliss was doing all of that stuff there, and it didn't have all the magic nonsense. So I kind of enjoyed it a bit more when they did it the first time round.
I agree, but I also enjoyed it way more than the Asuka title matches over the last 2 weeks.
That is absolutely fair. And you know what? So did I.
I just think, like, what a better character arc it would have been if Bliss took on Nikki Cross first. And, like right now she's still having these squash matches and you build her up for a shot against Asuka as opposed to to what end did the last 2 weeks of Bliss Asuka matches serve?
YouTube clip, the YouTube money. Like they got some YouTube watches. And like, because Nikki Cross during this match was just like, why are we still feuding? And I was like, great question. Like, she's like, I've moved past you. And I'm like, you sure did, but here we are again.
Do you know what the commentary team said when Bliss changed into a different outfit in 1 second before their very eyes?
What's going on here?
I'm bewildered.
Not perplexer Bliss.
They were bewildered this week.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's pretty bewildering. Like she's changing form literally in front of people's eyes.
And the main event was Orton versus Edge. I cannot believe this actually happened on an episode of TV with no build. Like, I know we've got the last year of build technically from last year's Royal Rumble, but like, god damn, pre-announce this in advance. Like, at least give it a week. At least have these two guys go face to face now, shoot an angle to set up a match next week. Heaven forbid, 2 weeks time, right? Maybe even an elimination chamber.
Yeah, I guess so. But like, they want to move Edge onto Randy Orton, and you can't. Onto Roman Reigns on SmackDown, so you can't have two concurrent storylines.
That's 2 months away.
I know, but they want to get started, like the start of the WrestleMania plans. We've got to wrap this one up before we can start the next one. So they had to wrap this storyline up. So they were advertising this match as like the very last time. This is the last time these two are having this match after this epic conclusion. And it really, like, dude, I completely agree with you. This should have been done in a elimination chamber as a special match to be like, this is the last time that we're doing this. And you could have had Edge also, like, Edge is like, I've got Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. That's where my focus is, but I've got to put you in my rearview mirror. I cannot focus on that Roman Reigns match until I've beaten you and tell that story. But they don't want to do two concurrent things. They're just like, well, let's just end this one. We start the next one on Friday. Let's just get this out of the way. Which really didn't. This was at one point the main event of WrestleMania over the championship, and it is concluded instead as a Raw main event that goes 10 minutes and has no build.
Yeah, screw you, long-term booking. Up until November, that was the plan. But then they took the belt off of Orton, decided that was not the direction they wanted to go in, and they've been scrambling ever since. However, this match I thought was fantastic. Because they've had those two matches, which actually collectively account for 4 days of in-ring action, that they could go straight into the final act. Like in the first couple of minutes, they were hitting signature moves, the execution, the snap power slam from Randy, stuff that's usually reserved for the mid or third act in matches. And they're just like doing double downs. Edge is selling his neck, which just, it still gets me. I'm still really scared for him all the time. But Orton gets on top. Really good 10 minutes of action here. Not all great matches have to go at least half an hour, Okada. Someone tell him. And then the finish was abysmal.
Yeah, so the finish of this match, if you didn't see it, was Randy Orton had the match won. He was getting ready to hit the RKO, and then Alexa Bliss appeared out of nowhere, sat up on the turnbuckle, and started oozing black goo out of her mouth like she's a real Ghostbusters toy. And like this goo, and then Randy's so like, oh, what's going on? Gets hit by the spear. Edge picks up the win, and then Alexa Bliss disappears. You left a comment on the WrestleTalk podcast community post being like, why wasn't Edge bothered by Alexa Bliss? Do you want to hear my theory on this? Only Randy Orton could see her and the commentators.
Oh.
And Edge couldn't see her. She wasn't there for Edge, so he didn't spot her there. That
is some Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior bull S word. I had a theory in my video earlier. I said, well, Edge was brought up through the Brood. This guy's not fazed by scary stuff like that. Spooky.
Yeah, it could be. I like it.
But yes, as you can tell, neither of us like that. This was the most against the supernatural stuff I've seen people be. Like, because weirdly, in the last 3 weeks, both me and Luca felt very out of step with the general sentiment, because a lot of people are loving the supernatural storylines. I think what's happened here, though, is people like the Randy Orton versus Edge psychological realism more. And those people who were also enjoying the supernatural stuff did not want to see those two completely conflicting tones clash in that way and essentially undermine and ruin the final of what's been quite a remarkable trilogy over the last year. So, yes. But it's again supernatural ending to Raw. It's been the same for a whole month now.
And I think a lot of people were also surprised that The Fiend was not involved in the Rumble at all. Like, The Fiend hasn't been on TV now for ages, which is actually kind of great because it really does sell the idea that he is gone. Like, the Randy Orton literally set him on fire and he hasn't been seen on TV now for over a month. That's incredible restraint by WWE. But the problem is we've also then got Alexa Bliss doing this stuff that I think is people are not into Alexa Bliss doing the magic as they were to Fiend doing the magic. Although there are people who have been enjoying it. And yeah, I think that there's now people who are enjoying the Edge Orton storyline but didn't want to see the Bliss interference. Also, the thing is, it's like the 4th or 5th week that we've had Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton close the show. So I think if people are just like, yeah, I get it. Cool. I'm ready for us to move this story on a little bit.
Well, overall, I gave this a 3 out of 4, but really it's a 3 out of 5. Like it was good in comparison to previous weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with you. Like, I thought this was way better than most episodes of Raw have been for quite some time, actually. And so by that aspect, it's a 7-star show. Like, it was I didn't hate the show. So, like, that's a complete win. We put a poll up onto the WrestleTalk podcast community tab. 59% also agree that it was an average show. 20% leaning towards core, 12% leaning towards poor. And because it's a YouTube post, we can have 5 options again. Hey, so we can do it out of 5.
Everybody go over to WrestleTalk podcast channel, to the WrestleTalk podcast channel, spoke like a caveman there, and subscribe. And then you can vote in that poll as well. Go over there and do it as we go through the Pledge Hammer $25 a month or more shout outs into the Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, because we're dual broadcasting right now, we don't have all the razzmatazz production, so we're just going to do the old-fashioned style. Thank you, always shining, Garrett Albright.
Love to see it. Say it to my face, Riley.
Yes, Robert Spencer, period.
Lovely stuff. The Wonder Wall, Brian Gallagher.
$100 man, CD Horther.
Woo. Better than the mediocre dollar man. Super Kick, Nick Mazesko.
Thank you. The Kessel Run DX Solo.
There he is. Love DX Solo. Dustin, the Professor Layton.
Nice. He can last Sean for longer than you in the ring.
I'm sure he can. The Cleaner, Kenny Shaw.
Thank you, Kenny. WrestleTalk's personal ring announcer, Rodrigo Benitez.
Beautiful pronunciation. And lastly, for this Hall of Fame class, no one names their kid this anymore. Larry!
Thank you, everybody, ever so much. You can become a Pledge Hammer on WrestleTalk's Patreon by going over to our Patreon page and check out loads of good stuff there. But right now, what we want you to do is go over. Look, you're still here. There's 1,761 of you by my count. I don't know where you are on WrestleTalk or WrestleTalk podcast, but you are the elite. You're the people who stay to the very end of this stream. So do us a favor. Go over and watch us on WrestleTalk podcast. It's the exact same stream as what you're watching right now. We see all the chats. Go over there, subscribe, and it just eases the transition. The super content shake-up.
There is, in fact, still 1,000 of you who are on the main WrestleTalk podcast channel. Sorry, on the main WrestleTalk channel. So it's time to make that. It's the Wrestle Switch. It's time for the Wrestle Switch.
Wrestle Switch it up. But last call for the whole Ultra Chats. Get your Ultra Chats in at WrestleTalk.com/support. We'll read out every single one of them before the end of the stream. Rhyming Orange says, greetings from Winnipeg, which is only 2,165 kilometers from North Carolina. I was the guy hyper-chatting about Drew versus Sheamus yesterday. I'm bummed it's happening so soon, but I still think they can end the feud as friends. We could use a story like that these days.
So like Sheamus realizes the error of his ways. That'd be quite nice.
Oh, I smell a tag team. The Bar 2. Start Recording says, if Bobby Lashley had a voice like Damien Priest, I think he would have been a world champion by now. He was a world champion.
He's an ECW world champion.
I think Lashley's soft-spoken voice is the weakest thing about his character, and it's a shame because I was happy when he got a title match versus McIntyre. Have you heard Brock Lesnar speak?
I was going to say, like, when I first got back into wrestling in 2005, I pretty much missed the entirety of the Brock Lesnar stuff. And then my old housemate at university said, it was like, I mean, it was really good, but the problem is he then had to cut some promos where he's like, I don't like you, Kurt Angle, and now we're going to have a match.
Bacon Rasher. Hi, lads. Take me to church. Priest is amazing. I will miss him in NXT, even though he wasn't booked great there. He's someone who Vince and the fans should like. He cannot be messed up, right? Also, any news on the Chopper screw job? Hashtag justice for Mr. Davis. Jam that jam. Yeah,
there was a screw job.
I think Chopper's loyal. Chopper's loyal to the old authorities, getting so many opportunities. But there is an inside man that's obviously screwing me over. There's no way I could have lost the championship because it was my fault.
I think it was your fault, though.
But yeah, I think Priest, they can screw up anyone. They screwed up Ricochet.
Dude, we said this about Keith Lee. When Keith Lee came in super hot, let's not forget, beat Randy Orton in like 8 minutes on pay-per-view in a singles match with no shenanigans, and then has done whatever he's done since then.
Geeklectic, what are your thoughts on a Damien Priest Carlito tag team? Priest can do the bow and arrow motion. Priest can do the bow and arrow motion through Carlito's apple. It writes itself. It was a joke. It was a joke suggestion.
Thank God for that.
But I liked your Home Alone 2. Oh no! Jam that jam. This American endorses Mr. Davis for Prime Minister.
So do I.
I'm considering a run.
I'll hot tag from you. Tyler Woodward said, sorry I missed the Rumble podcast, but did you hear Cesaro say to Sheamus, every man for himself before he swung him? I enjoyed Raw last night. I want Edge versus Drew more than the Roman match. Never lost the championship, so it makes more sense than Roman. But it was the World Heavyweight Championship, so it actually makes more sense that it's Roman.
Yeah, I was trying to work out the lineages of which championship Edge needed to go for, and I'm still confused. Is it the Universal?
No, I guess it would be the WWE title because they were merged together, weren't they? So maybe Tyler's right actually. I just sort of, because the Blue Universal title is like the other title, I just sort of look at it and just think that's the World Heavyweight Championship.
Watch WWE tell that story regardless.
Farhad Buta says, Goldberg, you don't respect legends, Drew. Drew shows tons of respect for Edge. Edge, why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? On another note, I forgot how much I love Edge until he's on my screen. Same goes with Christian. I love them.
Where was Christian on this episode? I think that's a mistake.
Is he doing I don't know where, because I think Jay and Jimmy are out now, but like I'd have loved to have seen like Edge and Christian versus the Usos as like a lead in to do the Roman match of Mania. That I'd love to see. Scott Young says, any chance Dave is wrong and we can get Edge versus Finn at WrestleMania? It makes so much sense for NXT from a ratings point of view. That match would be class as well.
I mean, no chance, right? Of course it would be amazing. I don't think it would make a difference to NXT's ratings. Maybe slightly when Edge turns up there, but for a week or two.
That's the problem, yes. I think it would actually really help NXT ratings, but at this point, I don't think they're that bothered about NXT's ratings against AEW. Like, it doesn't really matter anymore. They've already moved past that as a thing. Also, like in Edge's promo, he was like, "It's you or Roman. Those are my options." Monochromatic Weiss, or Vice perhaps, says, "Hey everyone, hope everyone's having a great day. With the rumor of Edge facing Roman and henceforth would probably be on SmackDown, him and Rey Mysterio being part of the OG SmackDown 6, maybe wonder who is the new SmackDown 6."
We get asked this question all the time. From WWE's point of view, Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Baron Corbin, Daniel Bryan.
Kevin
right
Owens,
now,
maybe.
Nakamura. Sorry?
Kevin Owens, because he's been in the title picture.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then Nakamura, I guess, because it looks like he's going to get the next shot.
Keith Kutach says, "Hey lads, had a great time watching the Jamble with you. What a blast. Where does Edge go after Roman? If he has a Mania loss, will his momentum slow down? If he wins, can he compete weekly or monthly and defend his title? Always jam that jam." So the report was that he's doing like limited dates per year, isn't it? So it would be like, it'd be a part-time champion.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, it's difficult if he's got the title. But he did also say that there were loads of guys he wanted to work with. And he specifically outlined AJ Styles and Matt Riddle.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I can actually see, like, Edge doesn't feel like the guy to beat Roman at this point either. So I could almost see Roman retaining the title. So, yeah. Phil Roberts, disagree. Edge did nothing. He showed how a genuine star, long retired, can come back and win the Rumble from number one spot. Lay low, fly under the radar, pick your moments. A feel-good story that made sense. I don't ask a lot more from my wrestling.
Yeah, I'd see where you're coming from. I do agree, though. It would be better, though, if he did have a few spots in between the entry and the end.
I also don't think that's the story they were telling. Like that, if it was, he would have said that in his promo, or like the commentary would be putting that over, but they're not. So, like, I think that we as fans can write that into the story, but I don't think that is what happens.
He didn't show grit.
No. Brett J. Rasmussen, I don't know how I feel about Edge versus Roman at Mania. I'd rather see Edge versus Drew. I think that would be much more fun. Also, everyone turn over to the WrestleTalk podcast channel. I already have been, and I'm watching the stream from there. Everything is fake door. Well done, you, Brett.
Yeah, I think I'm into Edge versus Roman. I don't really... There's nothing there for Edge versus Drew. It's babyface versus babyface. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want Roman to lose.
Yeah, no, I think I'm more into Edge versus Roman. But maybe that's because I just really love Roman at the moment.
A string of Chinese and Japanese characters, don't know your name, I'm so afraid. Is anyone going to remind Mustafa Ali that since he couldn't compete at Elimination Chamber 2019 due to injury, he received a title match the very next month at Fastlane 2019? Was that a multi-man? I can't remember. He never lost his title shot because of Kofi. It was just postponed a month.
Yeah, it doesn't work within the storyline though, does it?
Plus, I think like he's
2019.
He's leaning
on that show.
He's leaning into the sort of backstage reports where it was Ali was destined to be Bryan's pick to face him, and Bryan wanted to put over a new guy. So I think it works from that respect.
Just have a look. Do you want to any other? It was a multi-man match. It was a triple threat. Do you know who the other two? Have a guess who the other two people were?
Well, it would be Daniel Bryan because he was champion. Who else was he feuding with at the time? Kofi was too busy running every gauntlet ever. Was it Randy Orton?
Oh no, it was not Randy Orton. It was someone that Vince McMahon introduced.
Not Charlotte Flair.
No, it was the other one. It was Kevin Owens. Do you remember he brought just brought back Kevin Owens? Just like, and Kevin Owens is here.
Man of the people. Rathman. Charlotte is similar to the scientific substance known as thermite, which burns through anything it comes into contact with. All hail the Omni Flare, like the vomit from Alien, just like goes through everything.
Their blood, yeah.
Matt Ralph. Watched Raw for the first time in a year after a great Rumble. Not sure if I have much higher standards after AEW, but I thought this was poor. Riddle's burial was sad. I'm worried Priest will be stuck in the mid-card with The Miz. Thanks for the great content.
Yeah, I mean, for Priest, I think it's just like a stepping stone thing. Like Miz is kind of like he's almost the perfect person to kind of introduce it with, like a Dolph Ziggler, because they're almost like it's like how X-Pac was back in the day. They're the measuring stick. They're like, we've been here for so long, we can easily guide you through main roster matches, and then you can move on to bigger and better things after us.
But they've also screwed up much better stepping stones. So yeah, wouldn't hold your breath. Tyler Woodward, just give us Riddle versus Lashley and an effing fight pit to end the effing feud and give Riddle the US title, move Daniel Bryan to Raw and let them feud for 6 million years. This Riddle-Lashley feud is more boring than Mr. Davis making a milky tea. How dare you?
Yeah, I mean, I would wager that Vince does not know what the fight pit is.
But that Riddle Bryan interaction in the Rumble was fantastic.
So good. Loved
George Timperley, did you guys ever play the WWE 12 Road to WrestleMania? It had a great heel faction in it with Sheamus, William Regal, Wade Barrett, Drew McIntyre, and sometimes Layla, called the United Kingdom. This episode reminded me of this for some reason. We've had that. It was called the League of Nations. It wasn't good.
We also had it way better in TNA as the British Invasion. That was a good little trio. I did not play WWE 12 though. I haven't played a WWE game since SmackDown Here Comes the Pain.
Carol Wands, Trekkie 386. Hi, Luke and Ollie. Raw was indeed average. Edge versus Orton really wouldn't be a match I'd want to see yet again, but Edge versus Drew? Edge versus Roman? Either one of those is much better WrestleMania matches. Alexa Fiend and Orton storyline? No, thank you. Hashtag Ollie, send the belt to Laurie. It's complex. I'm looking into it.
Yeah. Start Recording says, I would have loved for Abyss and Ilya Dragunov to be surprise entrants to the Rumble. Oh, man, I'd have loved Abyss to have been a surprise entrant. I'd have marked out so much for Abyss. But I realized the Dragunov wouldn't have been able to travel to the US, so he's out. But Parks works for WWE. Would have been really cool to see Abyss appear at some point. I thought we were going to get that with AJ. Do you remember, like, they had that one segment together? And I was like, this is amazing. What a partnership. Like, with so much history with these two people, they're going to work so brilliantly together. And we only got that one segment.
Yeah. I guess he owns the Abyss character. There's no legal copyright complications.
Star Recording's got a couple of other messages. How would you guys feel about Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe? I think it'd be miles better than the one they had before Backlash 2018. Surely because of Reigns' character now, and because they're both Samoan, boom, it's a ready-made meal. Imagine the promos.
Yeah, I think that would be great, but they did have an absolute stinker of a feud a couple of years ago. But the dynamics are a lot better now, yeah.
Yeah. And it would be interesting as well from a certain standpoint, because Joe's not part of that family. Like, he's, you know, his joke has always been, I'm one of the few Samoan wrestlers that is not in that family. So I think there'd be quite something interesting around that. And he also, they also add, why didn't Alexa Bliss just shoot fireballs at everyone when she came out in the Rumble? Easy win. Everyone gets free sunburn.
Yeah. It's a bit inconsistent, isn't it?
Phil Roberts, also disagreeing building new stars means veterans can never win big matches. Just don't have them destroy everyone, bugger off with the main belt for months on end, and only look remotely beatable after a kick to the dick for 9 years. There's a balance.
Yeah, I agree.
George Timperley, if Drew has to have one feud with someone from the past, then there's only one option. Drew versus Hornswoggle to main event night 2 of WrestleMania.
Jinder, Heath.
James Hanley, I don't run a wrestling company, but using YouTube views as a way to direct your business seems like a poor idea. Just wait for the Rickroll at WrestleMania. Yes, I said Rickroll because WWE is a decade behind with pop culture.
Don't use YouTube views as a way to direct your wrestling business.
As in, like, because they get so many views for, like... Lastly, Tim McDonald says, Nikki Cross's new theme sounds like it belongs to a Lacey Evans.
I didn't actually know this theme had changed.
Neither did I. I thought she'd had that theme for months. I just assumed because I haven't seen her on TV for so long.
Well, that's all we have time for on... Oh, no, that's it. That's all we've got time for on this episode of the Raw Review podcast. Remember, beer52.com/WrestleTalk. Get a free case of 8 craft beers, UK viewers only. Please do go over and check them out because they mean a lot to us and we love them. Also, go over, if you're not there already, go over to the WrestleTalk podcast channel and subscribe and enable notifications to always on there, because that is where this podcast will be exclusively moving to in 3 weeks' time. We're going to be dual streaming across both channels in the interim. But for now, I've been Mr. Davis. This has been Lukewarm Luke Owen. Jam that jam.
Jam that jam, everyone. My